The following program is brought to you by the Catholic Diocese of Harrisburg and the Catholic Communication Campaign. Visit us on the web at hbgdiocese.org.
Franciscan Media and this local station present American Catholic Radio, Disciples Called to Witness. Production of American Catholic Radio is made possible by listeners like you. And now, here's our host.
Welcome to American Catholic Radio presents Disciples Called to Witness, a program designed to help you know your faith so you can grow in your faith. I'm your host, Judy Zarek. A Sunday school teacher began her lesson with a question. Boys and girls, what do we know about God? A hand shot up in the air. He's an artist, said the kindergarten boy. Really? How do you know? Asked the teacher. You know, our Father who does art in heaven. A mother was giving instructions to her 3 children as she sat with them in Mass. And why is it necessary to be quiet in church? Her son quickly responded, because people are sleeping. Okay, so you may have heard these before, but I bet you at least chuckled. I started out this week's program with a couple of jokes to make a point. Religion doesn't have to be all stuffy and serious all the time. And have you looked around at Mass lately? It's not always easy to find someone smiling. If we truly want to be like Jesus, we need to have a sense of humor. You know, he had to have one. Just look at all of us. So lightening up is one of the first things we can do to attract others and help spread the good news. In John Feaster's Discovering Faith segment, we'll hear Sister Ann Smolin talk about the work she does in the religious field using humor. And in my Sharing Faith interview, you're going to hear from Michael Huber, a guy who uses his motorcycle in a unique way to evangelize. He's a part of the Knights of Columbus community called Knights on Bikes. And we'll get to hear from Bishop Michael Barber as he joins producer Sharon Cross in our Call to Discipleship interview. We've got a great show lined up for you. So let's get started and see if you can guess this week's Saint of the Week.
Who am I? I am one of the patrons of difficult cases, especially those related to marriage. When you hear my story, I think you'll understand why. I was born in central Italy in 1381. For many years before that, my parents had prayed, hoped, waited, pleaded with God for a child. No wonder they were a bit on the protective side when I came along. And no wonder they planned what they thought would be the best life possible for me, marriage. To them, that meant I would be taken care of. If only things had worked out that way. I wanted to become a nun, but I followed my parents' wishes and said, I do. The marriage proved to be an utter disaster. My husband was abusive, unfaithful, you name it. I gave birth to 2 sons and did my best to raise them right, when they both took after their father. Things came to a violent end after 18 years of marriage, when my husband was killed in a brawl. A short time later, both of my sons died. I was beside myself. What was I to do? How could I possibly create something good out of all the evil and pain that had been part of my life for so long? My desire to enter religious life had never left me, but my, let's call them life experiences, didn't make me the most desirable candidate in the eyes of the communities of women I might join. It took 3 attempts before the Augustinian nuns accepted me. To put it bluntly, they preferred virgins. But I'm so glad I persisted. Religious life brought me great joy. Obedience, that was easy. Simple living was right down my alley. Self-sacrifice was natural. I loved caring for our sick sisters and helping the lay visitors who came to our convent for guidance. Prayer and meditation on the Passion of Christ brought me great peace. Perhaps it was the focus on Jesus' suffering, I'm not sure, but I developed a thorn-like wound on my forehead that lasted for 15 years. It was as if I was bearing Christ's bloody crown of thorns on my own forehead. I lived many of those years in isolation, but I lived them in profound union with Jesus, who suffered for us all. My final years were filled with physical pain and spiritual joy. I died of tuberculosis at age 80. Following my death, many people came to visit my tomb. They still do today. When Pope Leo XIII canonized me in 1900, he named me the saint of impossible and desperate cases. Now you know why. Who am I? I am Saint Rita of Cascia.
You're listening to American Catholic Radio presents Disciples Called to Witness. Our Catholic faith must be reflected in our everyday lives if we hope to evangelize others. In our Sharing Faith segment up next, I'll introduce you to someone who is willing to communicate and witness that faith. 8 years ago, law enforcement officer Michael Huber joined the local Knights of Columbus Council at his parish in Fayetteville, Arkansas.
One of the Knights just, finally talked me into it, and I joined, and, I haven't never regretted joining the Knights of Columbus. In fact, I never met anybody that said, man, I sure wished I wouldn't have joined the Knights of Columbus. Because we do so many good things, and last year, just in my local council, I think out of all the money that we brought in, for fundraisers, we turned around and I think it was 96 or 98% of it went back out into charities.
A little while after Michael joined the KFC, he became interested in motorcycling.
I was just doing an internet search one day, and I just typed in Knights of Columbus and motorcycles, and it pops up Knights on Bikes.
Michael talked with some other guys interested in riding and told them about this group called Knights on Bikes.
I talked to Jack about it. I said, Jack, this is perfect. This is right up our alley. This is everything that is us. Everything that the Knights of Columbus is about. Charity, faith, fraternity, patriotism. All those things that the Knights of Columbus are about is what Knights on Bikes is about. All we are is we're Knights of Columbus that enjoy riding motorcycles, and we use that as an extension to our evangelization and in trying to bring lost Catholics, back to the church.
A chapter had not yet been formed in Arkansas, so Raymond Medina, the founder of the international group, helped Michael become the first president of Knights on Bikes in Arkansas. His chapter now has about 58 members and continues to grow. There are around 43 states with chapters in the U.S., and they also have members in Canada and the Philippines. In total, they have around 10,000 members worldwide.
We do lots and lots of good things to support not only, the Knights of Columbus, but the diocese. That's like the mission statement is that, we're service bishop to our local parishes, to our local councils. Last year, after the West Texas explosions, the Knights down there found out one of the Knights of Columbus members was killed in the explosion. They went down and gave his widow, I think, $4,000 or $5,000, just as a gift, just to try to help her out. We've done some motorcycle rides. We do mission, like what we call church rides, and where we'll go and we'll visit a parish, and it's to show that. One, that's Knights of Columbus, especially in areas where there's a low number for the Knights, but, also to be a surprise to the parish, so look, there's some guys here that, they may be wearing leather jackets and stuff, but, they're Catholic and they have the same belief as we do. Instead of being just a regular motorcycle ministry, that we're also changed it to, we're now an evangelization, a Catholic evangelization to the motorcycle community.
Members of the Knights on Bikes make it clear that they are not a bike gang. Father Sinclair, a member of one of the motorcycle communities, reminded the group recently of what Pope John Paul II said about evangelization.
He had said that as Catholics, we should evangelize to different groups. There's really no Catholic evangelization or ministry to motorcyclists. One of the things, that I was constantly reminded, of whenever I was doing my prison ministry a while back is we keep forgetting that, it's not the people who are going to church that we really need to minister to. We got to get out there and we got to minister to those people who aren't making it to Mass, that are lost, that have fallen away from our church.
And what you write isn't half as important as what you do when you get to wherever you're going. But the writing is certainly fun.
We don't discriminate. Like, we don't say if you don't drive a Harley, you can't ride with us or anything like that. If you got a motorcycle or a scooter that can maintain highway speeds, and there are some larger scooters out there. We've got some guys that's got trikes. But we've got guys that's got anything from a Yamaha to some of these really nice, expensive Harleys. You can borrow a bike. I mean, you don't even have to own your bike. If you've got access to a bike, and you can ride.
If you're interested in Knights on Bikes, just join your local Knights of Columbus. Then you can follow both your passion for bikes and your passion for the Lord. Check them out at knightsonbikes.net. For Sharing Faith, I'm Judy Zarek. Our United States Conference of Catholic Bishops is helping to guide us in the call to witness our faith to others. They invite us all into a deeper relationship with Jesus Christ and His Church. This week, Bishop Michael Barber from the Diocese of Oakland, California, joins us and talks with producer Sharon Cross.
Our guest today is Bishop Michael Barber of the Diocese of Oakland, California. Welcome, Bishop Barber.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Tell me, is it different for a bishop to come from a religious community than it is just for a diocesan priest to become a bishop? Is there a different feeling, do you think?
Oh, I think it is, especially for the priests of the diocese to which you're sent, because it would be equivalent of, I've been a Jesuit now for 40 years and a priest for 28. It would be like, we're used to having our own Jesuit superiors, but it would be kind of like the Pope appointing a diocesan priest to be the superior of the Jesuits in California, and everyone would kind of go, oh, really? Although there are bishops from religious orders, but it's usually rare because now you're head of the diocesan priests, so you have to really identify with them. So now I'm a priest of Oakland as well as a Jesuit priest. I still sign S.J. after my name, so I'm a member of the order, but I am released from the vow of obedience to the Jesuits and the vow of poverty so that I'm free to administer my diocese. And then when I retire, I can retire either in the Jesuit community or retire as a priest of Oakland.
As Catholics, we know that the Sunday Eucharist is the center of our lives, but the Bishop's Discipled Call to Witness document reminds us also that prayers, devotions, and popular piety provide a powerful witness to the faith. Can you think of any particular devotions that may have had an impact on your faith life when you were growing up or now?
I think growing up for me, devotion to the Blessed Sacrament was very much stressed. And we used to love to serve benediction as altar boys because it was mysterious and reverent and also it was short, in a sense. That was very important. And when we had 40-hour devotion in our church as a boy, the Monsignor had 2 altar boys in the sanctuary every hour, so we would go in twos, even if it was nighttime or whatever. Our parents would bring us. So I remember doing that. I remember it felt like a very long hour when you were 12 years old, kneeling there. But it was time spent with our Lord, and it was wonderful. That devotion was really strong with me. And also, I'd say the rosary and rosary processions that we had in grammar school, especially in May when the whole school would go in procession saying the rosary. We were really encouraged to be close to the Blessed Mother. So the Blessed Mother was very real to me growing up. We always had a small statue in our house, and I think even my first communion I got a statue of Mary and always kept it in my bedroom and still do. That was huge for me, reminding me of Mary's constant loving presence. So, yeah, that was those are 2 devotions that are particularly stand out to me.
Right, and of course it's impossible to say, but do you think that if we encourage devotions in children, it might be a way of encouraging vocations to the priesthood or religious life?
Oh, yeah, I do. And the devotions always spring from the Mass and relate back to the Mass. and to the larger, say, content of faith. Let me just say, a few weeks ago, here in our new cathedral, we have this brand new cathedral that's been here 5 years, and a lot of people still haven't visited it in the diocese. So we had a Mass and invited all the 8th grade kids from every Catholic school. So over 1,000 kids showed up in their uniforms, and at the end of the, and I had it be a high Mass, solemn Mass, with incense, and I had trumpets, and I had the full cathedral choir and the organ and chimes, and I wanted the full, mysterious, sensual experience for the kids to take in, the sense of awe, mystery, majesty, beauty, wonder. And yet I wanted the experience of that Mass to continue when they left and went home, to always refer back to it. And so the Mass was for the Feast of Guardian Angels, and the homily was on the Guardian Angels. But at the end of Mass, I had the deacons bring forward huge baskets of religious medals and chains. And on one side of the medal was St. Michael, and the other was a guardian angel. So I blessed these, told the kids what they were, and this is a gift from me. Well, the kids all put them on, and many of them wore them outside of their sweatshirts, so everyone would see. They were all excited, and you knew it meant something when the next morning one mother called up desperate because one girl, her chain had broken and she lost her medal, and she was crying and wouldn't stop crying unless she could get another one. So that's what I mean. It continues palpably. That's why I love sacramentals, like these medals, scapulars, things that the kids wear to remind them of what they experienced there at the altar.
Thanks for joining us today, Bishop Barber. For Call to Discipleship, I'm Sharon Cross.
Studies show that people who pray regularly and practice their faith are healthier and happier. I'm Bishop Ronald Gaynor. I want to invite you to experience a positive difference in your life by visiting your Catholic parish and encountering Jesus through the sacraments. Do it for your family, do it for yourself, and come home. Remember that God's mercy is and always will be there for you, no matter what your situation. Visit CatholicsComeHome.org to find a parish near you.
Everyone said it was okay.
I had a life.
They said it was a choice.
I was looking outside for answers.
I didn't want to mess it all up.
It wasn't the real me that went that day.
The life I had, it's gone.
Something inside dies after an abortion. If you're suffering because of an abortion, you may feel alone, but you're not. There are people who understand and can help. Call 888-456-HOPE. 888-456-HOPE. A message from Project Rachel.
Next on American Catholic Radio, it's time for you to guess today's Catholic treasure. What popular devotion among Catholics particularly centers on the love of Christ? The answer is the devotion to the Sacred Heart. The image of Jesus with his heart exposed, on fire with love, graces many Catholic homes. Older Catholics will recall attending Sacred Heart novenas in the parish. Each year we celebrate a special feast dedicated to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. This devotion is scripturally based, especially in the Gospel of John, that speaks to the blood and water flowing from Christ's pierced body. Physical signs of the sacramental love of Christ, available to us through baptism and Eucharist. In the person of Jesus Christ, we encounter the love of God made visible. The heart of Jesus was seen as a symbol of this love as far back as the 9th century. Later, in the 17th century, Saints John Eudes, Margaret Mary Alacoque, and Claude de la Colombière helped to promote a specific devotion to the Sacred Heart. The popes in the 20th century strengthened this devotion through their teaching and through the consecration of the world to Christ's heart. The apostleship of prayer promotes the practice of the morning offering, a prayer dedicating one's day to God, as well as the use of badges bearing the image of Jesus and his Sacred Heart. Communion on 9 consecutive First Fridays was also linked to this popular devotion, the Catholic treasure honoring the most Sacred Heart of Jesus.
You're listening to American Catholic Radio presents Disciples Called to Witness. Today on Discovering Faith, producer John Feaster sits down with Congregation of St. Joseph Sister Anne Bryan Smolin, Sister is the executive director of the Counseling for Laity Center in Albany, New York. She's also an international lecturer on wellness and spirituality. Sister Smolin has published many books, her latest being Making Each Moment Count, 21 Reflections on a Fulfilled Life. She and John spoke about her work on the Humor Project.
Sister Ann, thanks for being with us today. Your Humor Project Ministry, sounds like a pretty official program. How did this all begin?
You know, I don't know how it began, except that I was teaching in some college courses, and people were enjoying them, and then it's like it snowballs. You know, the one door opens and another door opens, and then can you speak at my PTA? We do communion breakfasts and went on that, and then it became something that just snowballed. And about the 90s, in the 90s, the early 90s, humor and laughter and joy became the topic that we couldn't even touch. I mean, it was like everybody wanted it. And, you know, it just snowballed greatly. And so I did much more research and just kept going with that. And really, that's kind of a simplistic way of saying it. Just one door opened into another door, you know.
So do you think that we American Catholics take ourselves too seriously?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think we think that, and you know what? That's the opposite of what the gospel message is. And yet we walk around like the whole world's on our shoulder. I mean, look around churches. I mean, people don't even look happy. How we talk about the good news, and you know, and it's like this face that would stop an 8-day clock. You know, we don't look at each other. We don't, and we're not connected with each other. And yet, that's what it's really all about. It's in those connections. It's the way that we open up even our spiritual world to each other, simply with that simple gift of laughter. Starting right there, not taking yourself so seriously. Laugh at yourself a little bit. You know, I mean, you don't have to be perfect. We weren't created to be perfect. We're only created to be human beings. Some stress is good for us. I mean, you know, it's like deadlines. You know, if you didn't have deadlines, we probably wouldn't get a lot of things done, you know. So some stress, but that's called eustress. That's a positive stress. It's the distress that we really have to deal with, because if we don't deal with it, it deals with us. And then you open up your body to ulcers, diverticulitis, colitis, migraine, headaches, high blood pressure, heart attacks, cancer, whatever you want, because we're really there. So it starts with getting in touch, and it really physically is one of the ways. Listen to your body, because our bodies tell us when we're under stress. Some people bite the sides of their mouth, their hands get sweaty, their faces get red. I mean, there's different things for different people. But if we start there and then we say, okay, what does that mean? And then get in touch with what are our choices? You know, when we're under stress, some people drive too fast. Some people eat more. Some people don't sleep. You know, I mean, what do you do? So you look at the behaviors then in your life. And then we say, what are the things that really and truly feed my heart and soul? You know? And we really have to consciously put those things in our life. So then we are being responsible for ourselves, and we are taking care of ourselves. It doesn't mean that, well, the stress won't be there, but it's a different way of handling it. And then what happens is we keep that sense of balance in our life. We find the joy and the happiness. We trip over it. I mean, if you start to look for it, you know.
Gratitude. How can we cultivate gratitude?
One of the things I suggest to people is before you go to bed at night, sit on the side of your bed. And you have to do this every night for the rest of your life, by the way, all right? But anyway, sit on the side of your bed and think of 5 things that you're grateful for that happened during the day. 5 things. Go to bed. Next night, do the same thing. By the 3rd night, you're sleeping better. After that, you start waking up more positive in the morning. So what starts to happen is we start to look for it. It's like changing in awareness. You're looking for those things, and then you can bring them to the, you know, just 5 things. And it doesn't have to be big, huge things. It can be, the sun came out. Maybe you got a phone call from a friend. I don't know. It can be very simple, you know. And then we start being grateful. When we're grateful, we open up our hearts, and our attitude stays much more positive. That's the benefit of it, because it's the positive attitudes that help us stay balanced and healthy. We have to make conscious choices to really surround ourselves with much more positive attitudes, you know, to be people of gratitude, to be people who hang around with positive people, not negative people. Those are choices, but we have choices for everything. And then if you make the healthier choices, what we're doing is really and truly living out the joyful gospel message, you know. I think another thing that we have to do is to recognize that a smile is the way I think we send a blessing to each other all the time. And you smile at someone, even a stranger, they're going to smile back. So you get that back too. I think we need to look at people I know that sounds simple, but we don't even look at people anymore. We don't keep eye contact. What we do is we turn around and we stare at a floor, or your phone. With all the technology of today, I think another thing is to learn to laugh at ourselves, not take ourselves so seriously. To recognize that when you trip, it's not the end of the world. Tipped over a glass of water doesn't deserve an 8, 9, or 10. It deserves a 1, 2, or 3. You know what I mean? And I think sometimes what we do is we give up so much energy that we don't see ways that we can be able to keep that joy and that laughter in our day. Yeah. That's what I mean. We don't look for the things. We don't stay focused. People don't know how to live this moment because we're living yesterday, Geez, why'd I say that? If only I didn't. Maybe I should. Why did? And we're back there. We can't change yesterday. We can't take a thing back. We said we can't change a thing we did. Not a lot of power in tomorrow. We can hope for it, but there's not one of us that are truly assured of it. What we have is now. And when we slow ourselves down to the now, we grab that energy and we'll find the stories right there. I always ask people to learn to seize the moment. Seize the moment. Think of the people in the Titanic that passed up dessert. You know what I mean?
For Discovering Faith, I'm John Feaster.
This is Judy Zarek here to wrap up this edition of ACR Presents Disciples Called to Witness. I hope you enjoyed our program today and can take away something that will lighten your spirit for the journey. Being an active member of a faith community is one of the most important things we can do to nurture our spirituality. And how wonderful it is that doing this can be a joyful and happy task if we allow it to be. As the saying goes, laughter is good for the soul. So I leave you with a few thoughts before we go. Here's a list of 5 things you never seem to hear at Mass. Number 5. I volunteer to be the permanent teacher for the junior high Sunday night religious education class. Number 4. I love it when we sing hymns I've never heard before. Number 3, since we're all here, let's start Mass early. Number 2, nothing inspires me and strengthens my commitment like our annual stewardship campaign. And the number 1 thing you'll probably never hear at Mass is, hey, it's my turn to sit in the front pew. You can find ACR archive programs and more on the web at productions.franciscanmedia.org, where you can contact us and also meet our production team. Sharon Cross, John Feaster, Ron Riegler, Chris Holmes, Kim Wessendarp, and our executive producer, Matt Wilgoss. Music for our program was composed and arranged by Bobby Fisher. I'm Judy Zarek. Join me next time for another edition of American Catholic Radio presents Disciples Called to Witness.
American Catholic Radio, Disciples Called to Witness, is produced by Franciscan Media, a ministry of the Franciscan Friars of Cincinnati, Ohio. Production is made possible by listeners like you. Please visit our website where you can donate and find American Catholic Radio archive programs as well as other resources, franciscanmedia.org.